What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about my predictions for the Eastern Conference Finals. Make sure you watch until the end of the video so you don't miss out on any of my reasonings. And be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I think it's important to look at the previous series and talk about what the Celtics and the Heat did in order to get to this point in the playoffs. Starting with the Celtics, they went up 2-0 on the Raptors, and it looked like the series was going to be over in like 5 games or so, but then things started to turn around. I think it was game 3 when OG hit that crazy game winner with a half second left. The Raptors started actually hitting their open threes, and the Celtics started to collapse just a little bit in the second half. Kemba was hit or miss for most of the series. He had a few good games, but for the most part, he definitely struggled from the field, and I think a lot of it has to do with the length of the Raptors' defense. They went into a zone for a little bit, which definitely worked well against the Celtics. Kemba's a very small guard that can create his own shot and come off of screens similar to the style of play Brad Stevens had Isaiah Thomas playing in the past, but he was definitely struggling to find his rhythm. I will say that when it's time for him to really bear down and make a good play, most of the time he knows what the right pass is or is capable of hitting a clutch shot. For example, whatever game it was that OG hit the game winner, right before that play, Kemba had the ball in his hands with a few seconds left and could have taken a tough contested shot, but instead was able to make a really nice bounce pass to Tice. Yeah, they lost the game, but I think that's a good sign for the Celtics down the stretch. Smart was obviously amazing defensively as always and was up and down on the offensive end, but that's just who Smart is. You can't expect him to shoot amazing from the field or from 3 every game, but it seems like he's always having a positive impact. I think Jaylen Brown was amazing this series, able to lock up Siakam and pretty much everyone he's switched onto. Some games he struggled a little bit to hit his threes, but for the most part he was always having a very positive impact on the game. Jayson Tatum was being his usual self. I think he only had one not so great game, but he really showed out in game 7 and was confident taking the shots we all know he can make, and played solid defense as well. Now onto the Heat-Bucks series. I personally expected the Heat to win this series, but I didn't think it would be as one-sided as it was. Granted, Giannis did get hurt towards the end of the series, but it wasn't looking too good for them even before that. Butler was great. Even if he struggled from the field in some games, he would always make it up with free throws and great defensive plays late in the game, and he continues to be one of the best closers in the game. Goran Dragic played his best basketball. He was lights out from 3, making a lot of tough contested shots, as well as just being the veteran he is and knowing what the right play is most of the time. Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero were also really good this series. Both of them were shooting well from deep, and Hero even hit a couple clutch shots, which should really help him keep his confidence going into the next series. I think Bam was overall good. He did a little of everything, played great defense on Giannis, made some good plays down the stretch, and should continue to be good against the Celtics. The Heat were able to really outplay the Bucks defense, which was the best in the league this year. They ran a lot of pick and pops, and Milwaukee just couldn't stay on Miami's shooters. Now let's look at the matchups for this series, because I think that's going to be really important here. Both teams do like to switch a lot because they have long defenders that can guard multiple positions. For example, the Celtics with Smart, Brown, and Tatum, and the Heat with Jimmy, Crowder, Iggy, and Bam. Starting with the Celtics, I'm not really sure what the exact matchups are going to look like, but they need to find a way to either hide Kemba, maybe on a corner shooter, because he isn't big enough to disrupt Hero or Duncan when they're coming off of screens. And I also don't know if I could trust him to guard Dragic if he is playing like he did last series. Between Smart, Brown, and Tatum, I'm not too sure who they'll be guarding, but Smart or Brown will probably be on Jimmy, and the other either on Dragic or whatever shooting guard is in the game. Both of those guys are long and quick enough to stay with anyone on the court, except for probably Bam, just because he has a big size advantage over both of them. And while Jaylen was able to lock up Siakam, Bam is definitely a little bigger and stronger than him. I feel like putting Tatum on Bam could work because he's closer to his size, but I'm not sure if he's strong enough to stick with him the whole game. They'll either have Tice on him sometimes or Robert Williams, depending on how much he plays. And the rest of the guys will be guarding spot-up shooters like Jay Crowder. However, I do expect the Celtics defense to hold on more than the Bucks did. Smart or Jaylen, I think, will do a better job on Jimmy than the Milwaukee defenders, but overall it really comes down to making sure the Heat are not taking too much advantage of Kemba's mismatches and that they're able to close out on Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. Now moving on to Miami, I could see them sticking with Dragic on Kemba, which could be a mismatch depending on the type of game Walker is having. He should be able to attack him and find a few open looks off that matchup. Jimmy will most likely be on Tatum or Brown, and Crowder or Iggy should be defending the other one. I don't think it's a good idea to have Bam on Tatum because that would mean most of the time he won't be anywhere near the basket, which gives guys like Kemba or Brown an open lane to drive. Well, it might look like a waste of Bam's defense to be on Tice, since he doesn't have the ball too much on offense. It would allow them to switch when there's a Tatum pick and roll. But Tatum has kind of been unstoppable lately. No one has really been able to keep him in front of them besides maybe OG for a few possessions, and his sidestepping three seems to go in more times than not. But the Heat are long and switchy, so their matchups might not be as important here. I think it's also important to note that when Brown gets going, it takes a lot of attention off of Kemba and Tatum, which is big for this Celtics team. Hero and Robinson aren't really the best on-ball defenders. They were really getting exposed in both series, so if Brad Stevens is able to set up the offense well enough, I expect the Celtics to be attacking those mismatches as often as possible. I feel like the Heat are a good defensive team, but individually they aren't as good. I don't really trust Dragic or even Kelly Olynyk to be able to lock up any of the Celtics players, and Jimmy, Bam, Crowder, and Iggy are really going to have to play their best defense in order to make up for Hero, Robinson, and the other guys that might struggle to stick with who they're guarding. So obviously both of these teams have very dynamic offenses and defenses, and have two really great coaches in Brad Stevens and Eric Spoelstra, so I expect this series to be very close. Both teams should be making adjustments after every game, attacking mismatches as much as possible, and it's going to be up to the star players to really decide who wins this series. I think both the Celtics and Heat will come out playing very well defensively and might struggle a little to get it going on the other end because these coaches are going to prepare so well. So I know most people have the Heat winning this in 6 to 7 games, but I'm going to go with the Celtics in 7 here. I think they could win this series if Tatum continues to play at the level he is currently at. Smart has a few good shooting games. Brown plays just as well defensively and maybe a little better offensively, and I really think Kemba is their X factor. However, I could definitely see the series going the other way if the Heat are able to slow down Kemba and Brown, and then Boston is left just looking for Tatum every time to carry them to the win, which has happened in the past. If Jimmy is able to break down the Celtics defense with his passing and driving to the basket, along with Dragic playing at his top level, Bam taking advantage of mismatches, and the two sharpshooters are on fire, then we could see the Heat in the finals. However, like I said, I'm going to go with Celtics in 7, but the series could really go either way. I think it really depends on how Kemba plays and if Boston is able to close out on Miami's shooters. That's going to be it for this video. Make sure you leave your predictions in the comments down below, and if you like NBA content like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you never miss another upload. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.